Hello and welcome back. We've had a lot of questions about our plans for the Watermill. While showing you the boarding up of the windows, we'll try to cover some of the questions you've had about the Watermill's future and our plans. Firstly, let's talk about boarding up the windows and why we chose to take the approach we did. As the Watermill is a listed building, we need permission to replace the windows. Because of this, we're perhaps going a little over the top with the boarding up, as the permission will take some time to come through. I'm using OSB plus a moisture barrier membrane to stop water getting through. OSB alone might be suitable for a temporary cover, but it swells when it gets wet and it's not completely waterproof. The membrane will stop the water that hits it from soaking through. That being said, the ideal way to board up the windows would be from the outside, rather than the inside. By being on the inside, some water can run down the plastic film and make it inside, between the window frame and the plastic. Without scaffolding the whole building, it's pretty much impossible to board the windows up from the outside, and we don't yet have scaffolding. In this video, you'll see me attaching the OSB to the existing window frames with a nail gun. The ideal approach to windows in a historic building is to preserve as much of the wood as possible. Retaining the historic fabric of the building is important to preserve it for future generations. These windows are mostly from the 1980s and are almost completely rotten. Where there is existing wood, it's not salvageable. I tried attaching the OSB with screws, but the wood frames are not solid enough for a screw to bite into. I can push a screwdriver straight through most of the wood. Therefore, I'm aiming to punch a nail through the OSB, through the rotten frame, and into the cement which surrounds the window. We'll be removing the cement as part of the restoration process and replacing it with lime mortar. Our plans for the mill are to design around the existing structure and machinery. We want to limit the amount of changes to the historic structure of the building as much as possible. The exception to this is the kiln, where we need to remove all the internals as they are unsafe, as well as not conducive to a residential conversion. We're also going to add a new window to the front and back of the mid-floor of the kiln, which requires cutting the stone walls. All the mill gears, machinery, and grinding equipment will be staying and getting restored. On the ground floor, we plan to have a large country kitchen in the main portion of the mill. This will have sliding glass doors to see the mill's amazing gears through. This will keep the hazards of the gear pit locked away from our toddler, whilst keeping them as a stunning feature of the kitchen. The 1980s staircase will be removed, restoring the floor to its original coverage. As mentioned in the last video, the archway to the kiln, which dates to the mid-1800s, will be retained. This takes us through to a completely reworked kiln space, which will have a full bathroom, utility room, and stairs up to the mid-level. Being off the water grid, we need a utility room not just for a laundry, but also for water treatment. We'll also have our electricity incomer moved to this room, and networking equipment in there. It's going to be a little cramped with all that going on. The stairs will take you up to the mid-floor, which will have a small bathroom and a guest bedroom in the kiln area, plus stairs leading up to the top floor. The main section of the mill will be a single room that we'll use as a lounge. The millstones and other machinery will be a feature of this room. We feel they are safe enough to be around that we will not need to section them off. On the top floor, the master bedroom and bathroom will take up most of the kiln, as it's not a particularly large area. The main section of the mill on the top floor will have a family bathroom, double bedroom for our daughter, a rather small single bedroom, and my office. The office could be used as a large double bedroom instead. As some of you have noted, I have a large amount of electronics equipment behind me, and I have plenty more in another room. I work from home, so a substantial office space will be necessary. Materials-wise, we must use breathable, traditional materials to protect the structure. The roof will be all slate. We'll add over 6 tons of slate to the kiln roof as we rebuild that roof from scratch. Under the slate, we'll have a modern, breathable membrane, and we're planning to use a wood fiberboard product as both insulation and an additional breathable waterproofing layer. We'll have yet another layer of insulation inside the rafters to prevent cold bridging, and finally, plaster for the interior roof. We're also going to replace the existing roof windows with modern conservation windows, which are a touch larger. On the walls, we expect to use a breathable wood fiberboard insulation on a bed of lime plaster. To save us punching holes in the walls for surfaces or having to surface mount them, we will add a moisture barrier to the insulation. We will then have a thin surfaces cavity framed on each wall. We have 800mm thick stone walls, so we're trying to strike a balance between optimizing what space we have inside, insulation value, and practicality. Old buildings should not be over-insulated, as it can cause problems with the stonework in the future. That being said, we do have to make a nod towards building standards. There is little expectation that a historic listed building will be able to fully meet the insulation required in building standards, but we do need to make an attempt. We also need insulation to keep the heating bills down. It's all part of the battle of adapting a historic building for modern day living, balancing energy efficiency and the requirements of a historic building's construction methods. As we've mentioned previously, the wood floors are in terrible condition. Realistically, we hope to be able to get 1 floor worth of timber out of the 2 wood floors. We'll also be repairing the floor beam ends with scarf joints to retain as much of the historic wood beams as we can. This also allows us to retain the traditional attachment of the wood beams to the walls. It's also a lot more work than modern methods of attaching a floor beam to a wall. The historic wood floors are unlikely to be seen, as building standards require acoustic insulation between floors, so we'll need a layer of insulation over the wood. We're planning to use electric underfloor heating for all our heating needs. If we can get some renewable energy happening, it won't be as horrendously expensive as you might be expecting. We have no gas supply on the island, and while electricity is very expensive, so is the delivery of gas, fuel oil, wood pellets, or coal. The islands have a massive surplus of renewable energy, so electric heating is the most environmentally friendly option as well. Many people have asked about getting the water wheel turning. This is something we'd love to see happen, but it's basically at the bottom of our to-do list. We need to figure out where we stand legally for water rights, the wheel needs to be repaired, and the mill lathe needs a lot of work. We should be able to extract about 4 kilowatts of energy off the wheel, as a 14-foot wheel would generate 4.8 kilowatts of work, with 500,000 litres of water per hour flowing over it. Right now though, our priority is making the property habitable, as finding somewhere to live on the island while we restore the watermill is a real challenge. To that end, we do expect to be moving in long before the project is finished. We'll probably have a very low-cost temporary kitchen, perhaps just the ground floor bathroom, and the top floor could be completely unfinished, yet the property be habitable. We're not rich by any stretch, but we do want to restore and adapt this property to a very high quality standard. This will take a lot of time as we're doing the work ourselves. Taking time also allows us to make more money to spend on the project than we have right now. If you have more questions or ideas, feel free to leave us a comment. We've barely broken the surface of this project. If you want to see the watermill get restored, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We're aiming to make weekly videos as we work on the mill. Next week, we're going to talk about the process of searching for, researching, and buying a derelict property. There's a lot of fantastic tools online to help with the process. We spent a year looking for this house, and we tried to buy a couple of other properties. We're very thankful we missed out on them, as the watermill is the most exciting we saw. If you have questions you'd like to see answered in that video, please leave a comment as soon as possible.